Hey everybody, welcome to Commercial Construction Elevate the Industry podcast series hosted by yours truly, Dave Cressida. First of all, thanks for joining us. The purpose of the podcast is to help anyone in business from owner to intern understand the business better, understand what path they want to take and how they want to get there. We're going to do that two ways. We're going to introduce you to industry leaders whose stories will empower and inspire you. We'll also do episodes by me. I've been doing this for a long time, and I can help you get past some of the things that I had to struggle with, the good, the bad, and the ugly, over the last 40 years. Either way, I am super excited about today. We have a guy who's an old friend, but you talk about everyone from owner to intern. Think about this. Our guest started out at 15 years old and was a laborer, became a stone setter, then an apprentice. Then he became a draftsman to a project manager. And there was a point in time when you hear the whole story today where he said, you know what, I'm going for it. He laid it all on the line. He started his own business and now is one of the most successful stone contractors in the DC metro market. Benvenuto, amico mio. Welcome, my friend, Brett Rugo, president, owner, and co-founder and founder of Rugo Stone. Brett, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
So, Brett, you started out as a laborer. Describe how you went from there to owning a business.
Well, that's a long process, Dave. It doesn't happen overnight. I think anybody that's young, 14 or 15, should start working a multitude of different types of jobs. And don't ever think you're too good to do any level of job. Washing a broom, cleaning a bathroom, whatever it might take to get started. And be a good listener and learn to respect your elders and the experience that they have. Those are instrumental experiences as a young person on the path of discovery where you find something that you want to do. I never looked at owning a business as being a businessman. I looked at it as a natural evolution of acquiring my skill sets and wanting to do it the best that could be done. Not just mediocre, but the best. And so my path started out at the lowest level jobs, and I worked through a variety of disciplines until I graduated college. I think I started work the following day that I got out of school. There was no summer break. There was no tour through Europe. I didn't even own a car until I was 22. And those are humbling experiences, and you need to have those because owning a business, unless it's gifted to you or you're independently wealthy, will never be easy. And you need to be prepared to do any and every job. And an old man once told me, if you own a diner, you got to wash the dishes. And I think that's a funny little parable, but it's really true when it comes to a business. My evolution through the office chain or through the field side of the construction was very interesting. I got exposed to a lot of great European craftsmen, a lot of Italian and Portuguese guys and working in Boston, a lot of American guys that were really capable. And they didn't like to teach in those days. You had to listen, do what you were told, and follow instructions. And don't get in the way. And you acquired that experience by paying attention and being a good boy. And if you overstepped your bounds, they'd rein you in really quick. And it wasn't show and tell where they would explain every step to you. So you had to learn a lot of things incrementally as you go along. Fortunately for me, I had a really good memory and I had a good work ethic. And I liked those things. But most importantly, I just really liked the medium of stone. From pouring it in the ground to processing it into a finished piece to getting it installed safely on a building that would stand for, let's hope, 100 years. Following college graduation, I did go work in an office and I started out doing a little bit of drafting. That was fairly short-lived. I was not an expert draftsman, and my boss was gracious enough to find other opportunities for me. In those days, project management really wasn't the discipline that it is today. Frankly, the subcontractor community didn't have as much responsibility in terms of process and paperwork and reporting as it does today. But the position of project coordinator, assistant project manager was evolving, and I gravitated into that, which proved to be a good skill set for me. I seem to be good at leading people, managing people, or being managed. I often say you can't manage people unless you know how to follow. It's 30 years now, I guess, since I've been down here. I think I've been here in 80. I got here in 89 when Reston Town Center was just farmland. And we had some great successful projects in those years, but unfortunately that company got into some really difficult financial trouble where an owner canceled the balance of a very large high-rise in Avenue of Americas in New York City, and shortly thereafter I got laid off.
Before you continue,
Yeah.
I want to hit that one because I met you when you worked at Molly Turno,
Yes.
and I was doing the same job in New York City.
Yeah.
And I had 3 companies I was a subcontractor for on that job and go out of business. So we talk about business. It's not all fun and games, and it was a struggle. But you know what? You do, because the why was that important to me. You get through it, as did you.
No, I remember those days, and I remember not knowing much about insulation and air barriers, but keenly trying to listen to the limited amount of exposure I got to. You were already an established businessman, and I was still more or less pushing a broom in terms of the hierarchical structure. But anyways, I moved to Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, got laid off. It's the first time in my life I'd ever lost a job. And I went out and just set tile and stone and made countertops for the next 6 weeks until I was called by a large glazing company called Harmon Contract out of Minneapolis. And they wanted to hire me. I was really quite shocked that somebody would be interested in hiring me. I didn't even know I was on anybody's radar. So I flew out to Minneapolis and had a 2-day series of interviews in corporate America, and that really changed my life. I mean, we took the equivalent of SAT type tests where you had to fill in all the little dots to cast a profile of your personality, your skill set, and then we negotiated for quite a few hours over salary and benefits, and I was finally awarded a position. I went on to work for them in the Mid-Atlantic region for about 4 years, and that was, I often tell people, my equivalent of an MBA. And the difference between the trade knowledge and the family environment and the skill set that I learned working in a family environment in a specialty trade was augmented and enhanced by having corporate America influence type people who were able to teach me and expose me to real planning, business planning, mission statements, focus, financial outlooks. All of those instruments that are often taught in school, I was exposed to and eventually had to grasp knowledge to. And so in the course of 4 years, we developed quite a market share, but I could see that corporate America's style of handling people wasn't going to be compatible with mine long term. And it really wasn't working for a company that was, its core business was my passion. And so at the age of 30, I recall talking to you about this because you were an established entrepreneur. And that was a subject I really didn't understand. And I didn't know what it was to go and start a company. But through conversations with you and a few others, I eventually got my act together, used the knowledge that I had gained from Harmon to develop a study on this area, and I had sought out a partner and put a plan together, very detailed, and he accepted, and so the company started, and it really lit off very well for the first 10 years, because in those days it was really about the specialty, about the work, and people were happy to pay you for the good work that you were doing. So that's a short synopsis of how I ended up.
Interesting for sure, and we intersected a lot, of course. And not that I wouldn't love to have a piece of this business, but I remember you came to me and said, Dave, because I was in business, you go, would you be interested in backing me at it? And I knew you were passionate. I knew you knew where it was you wanted to go, and that by far trumps everything else. But I said this to you, and I meant it. I said, look, if you need money or you need a backer, find somebody who's strategically aligned with you. And I wasn't, right? I could have been a sub down the road, but I wasn't. Because I say, even in my other podcast last season about starting a business, money, if that's all you can do and that's all you need, then do what you got to do to get it, because half of something is better than 100% of nothing, right? But if you really want a good partner, get somebody who can get you the money and the bonding, which you needed, and who can put you in a position, get you sight into their client base and everything else, where what you do helps them and what they do helps you. You carry each other. That was cool. That was a big move by you.
That was, your advice was instrumental in how I sought out the right strategic partner. A very established company with a complementary business, a sterling reputation, bonding capacity, and we put up equal money. So it was never anything less than 50-50. Of course, the indemnification was with my partner for the first 5 years of the company. And that's when I learned what capital at risk was. I didn't really understand that term, but that's for anybody contemplating a business, you have to be prepared to put it all on the line, and I absolutely did. Everything I had in the bank, and I lived in an apartment, was put on the line with no hopes of getting it back if something didn't work. And I never gave any thought to that investment. I truly put it all on the line. I kind of make the equivalency of jumping out of an airplane with a parachute.
Right.
You just do it. And that's kind of what it was. And then it was just nonstop work, 24/7, 7 days a week, really for all of my 30s to get this company and its brand established.
And we're going to talk about brand, but I will say this, that there are big differences. And I've worked for my own company. I work for big privately held family businesses, as well as major public companies. What are one or two or three differences that you see in both? You mentioned a couple between a Castellucci.
Yeah, well, working for the Castellucci family was a really good experience. I got mentored on a personal level with a lot of passion for the trade. The focus wasn't accounting and insurance and liability as much as it was executing the work at the highest level. When you move on to a public scenario, it's all dollars and cents, and it's all about accountability. And you will be monitored, and you will have expectations set on you that you better achieve, or you'll be canceled. And that's what it is. Money demands return when you get into there. And I think a lot of private businesses are also rigidly run on that, but they also tend to be a little more gentle, I should say, in the mentoring and the teaching of people.
So we talk about accountability in a business development podcast I have, and I do say that, exactly that, Brett. I said that the difference between maybe a family-owned business public company is the planning and the follow-up and the tracking and everything else. They are professionals about having people accountable, because they are. It starts with the board of directors. So I know a lot about you that people don't, but let's talk about Rugo Stone as it exists today. Tell us about your business today, and then we'll go backward from there.
So Rugo Stone is a Class A commercial subcontractor. We operate in the Mid-Atlantic area, producing natural stonework in any type of variety, from interior lobbies to museums, governmental buildings, facades, landscapes, memorials. And we also have a manufacturing facility where we produce a lot of fine art in glass mosaic, statues, reliefs, engravings, dedication walls, and a variety of other special projects that require highly customized machinery and highly experienced skill sets that we employ here at our company.
So I was blown away, because I'm a commercial contractor. That's how I met you, back in 1996 or 7? And and I always pictured you as a commercial stone contractor, which you are, but you're a lot more than that. We're going to get into, because you took me out in the back there from a major commercial job with repeatable prefabricated units to another room where a guy was doing a mosaic of stone and marble and glass. It was incredible. Tell us about where you grew up and what kind of influenced you in the early years before you even thought about business.
Oh, well, I was born in a town that was famous for natural stone. I was born in Barre, Vermont. It's a little town in north central Vermont that had a series of waves of immigrants that came from Europe, all in pursuit of a better life, and they all tended to have skill sets to carve stones for the cemeteries. So at a very early age, I was exposed to all the different trades and disciplines around the granite production, primarily for cemeteries. So at a very early age, I really knew what I liked. I never even thought about a business, but I had a passion and a curiosity to constantly learn.
It's about parents. What did they do?
My mother had a variety of jobs. Worked for an eye doctor. She was a technician. My dad worked for a general contractor. He was a civil engineer and a PE. He didn't follow the stone trade like his father did. And we moved around a little bit in New England in various areas, eventually landing in Rhode Island, where I went to high school and college. But my parents have tremendous work ethic and tremendous ethics. And I was really fortunate to have two great sterling examples for work ethic and honesty.
So, common thread, right? What makes you who you are? Did that develop early, and what was it?
I think the most common thread that, if I look at my business career, even my personal life, any accomplishment that I've ever had, I just won't quit. I'm very resilient, and I'm willing to stick it out in the good times and the bad times. And I always try to stay humble and cognizant that even in good times, they won't last. And that tougher times will come, and that the mark of anybody in a leadership position is resiliency.
See, and I would urge those of you that are listening, we say owner to intern, and Brett's certainly representative of that, but by no means is once you get a business, is it easy. It's tough.
It's very hard.
It's tough. I talk about starting a business in one of my podcast series in episode 1. It talks about you got to know why you want to do it, because the why has to really supersede any of the issues that it's going to take to get there. So we'll get through some of those. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be back shortly with more from Brett Rugo.
Hi, I'm Patrick Ripple, founding partner of ISA Architectural. I've known that chap right there for well over 20 years.
And what a 20 years it's been. I'm Larry Windsor, partner, vice president of construction services. Our third partner, Mike Morehouse, can't be with us today.
We are the Mid-Atlantic's premier sales force for architectural building products and engineered architectural solutions. For over 15 years, we have been providing comprehensive design solutions to architects and designers all across this region, and high-quality economic product solutions to contractors and subcontractors too.
We bring products and people together. We specialize in the building envelope, everything from the weather barrier all the way out to different types of cladding. We fully understand the rain screen principle, and we have an interior portfolio specializing in wood and metal walls and ceilings.
If you're a developer, part of a design team, architect, or interiors, or if you're a contractor, let us help you.
Visit www.isaarchitectural.com and see how we can bring value to your project.
So Brett, walk us through some memories when you started your business. What were the first couple, 3 years like? I think you started in like 1997, you became incorporated. And how did those memories shape what your business model looks like today?
You know, we were really fortunate. We got some early contracts for really prestigious Catholic church work, a war memorial for the state of Maryland, a couple of marquee office buildings, and I really felt like the business was participating at the same level of very high-end work as it was when I was at Harmon and when I was at Moliterno, and I didn't have a big gap and drop where I was in a residential market share with a scope of work that I really didn't like. So I was doing a lot of exciting jobs, and my memories of those times are honestly a little vague because I worked so much and I worked hard. I have a ton of memories about working till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, sometimes 2 in the morning, whatever it would take, and then getting right back up first thing in the morning and starting again. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but it was in those days, and that's what it takes to really get a dream on the ground with your feet underneath you.
So did you find it competitive? I mean, were you on par with the local guys? There's some big ones here.
Yeah, no, we were always competitive. I think as a new company, you always have the challenge of existing brand to compete against, and people that have been in business for 15, 20, 50 years, 2, 3 generations, and convincing people to work with you and that you will deliver equal or better craft is really, that's the play, and being able to do that. I recall telling a man one time, he's since passed from cancer, but he was a developer, and it was a small contract for an office building lobby. And he said, well, you know, you're up against these guys. They've been in business 50 years. I've worked with them. And I said, why don't you give a young man a chance? And he loved that.
Wow.
And it wasn't a sales pitch. I delivered the job. Obviously, he gave me the contract. And he never forgot that either. We stayed friendly up until he passed. And that was a really meaningful thing because it was an older man passing the torch to a younger man. And that meant a lot to me.
You know, that's wild because I often say that, and it's not phony at all. It's that you need to tug on people on what makes them tick. And sometimes, you know, especially get an older guy, you know, okay, I've got contract after contract. I'm saving money, making money for my company, but what else am I doing?
Yeah.
Well, here comes a young guy, and I want to believe in this guy. And I want to be part of. I want him to talk about me on a podcast 20 years later. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, it's crazy. Branding. You mentioned the word branding, and construction typically is way behind the curve in everything from technology on. But you talk to certain companies about branding, and I go, "What do you mean branding?" The way I look at it, it's like it's marketing. It's like what the clientele and the public perceives you to be.
Yes.
It's not a sale, but it's marketing. So how do you see branding, and how have you used
Well, in those early days, brand for me was an uphill battle. I didn't have the years. I thought I had the same competency. In fact, I know I did. I didn't have the reputation. I didn't have the network. So brand is a combination of those things that all boil down to perception. And perception is a huge decision point for purchasers or decision makers in every element. And I learned early on that our brand was going to be competency and a very high level of authentic quality each and every time. Not one-off, one-job wonders, but generally personally committed to give you the best project you can. I coined a phrase along the way, which was, it's not our goal to meet your expectations, it's our goal to exceed your expectations. And a lot of people really believe me on that, and it really was the truth. And as time has gone on, our brand has become genuine, authentic quality of old world craftsmanship along with modern technology to do contemporary buildings.
That you summed it up well. What industry, the industry itself? You've been in it a long time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've given back? I know you've taken. Have you given back? What have you done in the industry? Different roles you've played.
As early as my 30s, I started getting involved in trade association work, and I served on the Marble Institute of America's board of directors for 7 years, eventually becoming the president. And I was a very active board member, always suggesting modifications and improvements to the offerings and the education level that we gave back to the community. It was a wonderful way to also network with some of the best companies, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And so I did give back in a big way, and I still give back to that association because I believe in educating the competition and educating the marketplace.
A lot of people would say, I don't want to do that, educate the competition. Hey, if you raise the level of competition up, right, you're going to get, your competitors are going to be better.
Right.
The industry will be better. The last thing you want is some, let's say, less informed company pursuing the same work you're pursuing. It just makes it that much harder.
Look, I think it's this simple. Everybody has a competitor. So why not have your competitor be competent and keep the market value of whatever product or service you're providing at a sustainable level? And encourage designers and architects to continue with your product in their specification process. Because I will tell you, I've had many conversations with designers and architects who get frustrated with different product lines and feel like there isn't an adequate level of skill and competency within those trades to do the level of work that they want, so they steer specifications and design away from those things. So that's another big motivator for me, is I'm trying to preserve the use of natural stone as much as possible in a marketplace that really, quite frankly, tends to use glass and metal panel.
And they do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say one word, and I want you to describe what it means to you in the business, and that's relationships.
Relationships. Personal relationships are far more important than contracts. Being able to call somebody, mitigate and solve a problem, sort out your differences is the right way to do business. And that's on the downside. On the upside, relationships are comfort to people. People want to work with somebody they have a relationship with and that they can rely on, and somebody that's predictable. Everybody in the entire process of building a building has got some level of risk, whether it's the developer, the architect, the general contractor, and of course, you and I as subcontractors. They want to mitigate that risk. So it's important to get out and meet people, develop a network based upon good ethical standards and a track record. And generally, you will get repeat business. It's not a guarantee that you're going to get every job just because you're friendly with so-and-so, but at least you had that opportunity. And that's important.
This is a relationship business for sure. I talk about pursuits and not bids, because bidding is like when you're going to throw out a number and you're going to be one of 7 or 8 guys. Right. Pursuit is way different. Clients have choices, and beside the fact that you might have a good relationship, all our clients have choices. You just said you're not going to get every job, but what, if you had to describe the industry locally, what differentiates you from the other stone contractors on an everyday basis?
Everybody uses the word quality. Everybody likes to cite the awards that they win, and those are important. And I'm not degrading anybody else's abilities, but I have to tell you, when we take a contract, we're exhausted internally in the design and the drawing phase to produce a system and a set of colors, species of material that's really going to function and perform. I think one of the other big differentiators is that we're vertically integrated and that we manufacture a lot of our own stone, not only for commercial buildings, but obviously for other smaller segments where we choose to put our energy in.
You know, this is a very artistic trade,
Yes.
right? I mean, it's way different than what I'm used to. And you're a craftsman
Yeah.
first, who turned businessman. So how do you balance the two, the passion for doing the work right and the different types of work that you do, with the understanding that you're running a business, you have families to support, you have a lifestyle as well? How do you balance those two?
That was a real challenge. I would say I wasn't very good at balancing in the early years because I was so dedicated to the work. But as I got married and life went on and I started to have children, it was important to not work every weekend. There were exceptions to the rule. I tried to put as much into the Monday through Friday schedule as I possibly could and try and make an effort to attend all of my children's activities and other family events. That's a real balancing act, and I tip my hat to any entrepreneur that can balance and pull themselves away from that daily desire to want to be intimate with every single decision, because frankly, you got to learn to let go and you got to learn to delegate. Otherwise, you won't have a personal life. So that's a work in process for me, Dave. I'm hoping that as I move forward in the next 10 to 15 years, as I wind down, that I will become supremely talented at that. Because right now, I'm still a little bit on the fence, still attached to work because it's always a survival mode. But I do like my hobbies, and I've started to capture time where I want to spend with those. And my children are getting older, and I want to spend more of that time before they head off to college.
Well, you know, we're going to take a quick break, but for all of you that are listening, it's like the coach. And Brett, you just described it. You coach hard during the week, and on the weekends, your team plays. The day that you, as a coach, can sit back and watch and let them do their thing is the day you've done your job. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more from Brett Rugo. Elevate, elevate, elevate. Hey, everybody. If you're looking for a strategic business partner who does subcontracting work on the interiors, let me tell you about the CFP Group. They are a minority business enterprise and have been in business for over 20 years. If you're interested, you can contact them by email at cfpgroup1@gmail.com or call them directly at 410-977-8568. That's 410-977-8568. Take it from me. I've done business with them, and I know they can get the job done. Hey, everybody, welcome back. So, Brett, you mentioned it a couple times about business is tough and you don't do it by yourself. So now I'm not talking about staff, because you've groomed a good staff. That's a big part of your success. But let's go back and say, who influenced you? We talked about your parents, but once you got in business or you were about to get in business, who were the people that influenced you the most, and what did they do to earn that?
Well, certainly my parents were instrumental with work ethic and honesty and all that. But once I got started in the business, I worked for a man from Rhode Island named Ken Castellucci, and he had a tremendous influence on my passion for the industry and passion for life, food, cooking, wine, all of those things. He had it all combined. But he was really a nostalgic guy who had a supercomputer memory of materials and applications and a very vast network. And he put his arm around me and allowed me to get access to an industry intellectually through experience, even at a junior level, that most people would never get unless they were a family member. And I will always be grateful for that. And that was something I'm trying to give back to. I constantly have interns that come in here. My son has started to work here at the very lowest level.
How old is he?
He's 15.
And how old were you when you started?
15. Yeah.
That's
No,
cool.
he's just starting out.
Anybody from Harmon that
I think,
shout
I
out?
mean, frankly, I don't want to sound self-serving to you, but you had a big influence on me because you were an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that you had a very keen eye on how to develop business and combine that with service. And I was always intrigued by that because, let's face it, Dave, insulation and air barriers are not as sexy as stonework.
Nope.
But you made it a real business. And I often thought that the real accomplishment in this industry would be to take that great craft passion and knowledge and combine that with a good sense for business and an ability to keep your eye on the numbers. And I think that's, another piece of good mentoring that I received from a man named Gene Bucci, who worked for Moliterno. He was sort of Mr. Inside, and Ken Castellucci was Mr. Outside. And Gene was an engineer with a lot of general contracting experience, and I had a couple of years exposure to him. And he gave me a lot of good foundational skills on how to assess building, whatever type of building it was. And I was a little sponge. I mean, I just tried to learn everything I could from all the folks. But I have to say, there was an awful lot of talented people around Moliterno in various disciplines, from drafting to engineering to master masons, that I gathered information from piece by piece as I moved along. And I'll always be grateful for that exposure.
So let's move on to some of your today, right? And when you look back, you got pictures all over this place. What are some of the most memorable projects that you've undertaken?
Well, certainly in the early years, the Universal Call to Holiness, which was a large bas-relief carving. We believe it's the largest bas-relief installed in the United States, was a great commission. In spite of my low brand at the time, I was able to convince the benefactor that we were the right guy to use, and that was instrumental in really allowing us to go into the Catholic Church market sector. And other meaningful projects in the early days, the Maryland World War II Memorial was really special because on that foundation board were survivors of Pearl Harbor, Battle of the Bulge, and those guys were still alive. They were like privates and low-level seamen at the time of the war, but at the time of the dedication of this memorial, which is in Annapolis, they were admirals and generals in their probably late 70s and 80s, I'm guessing. They've all since passed. That was a really amazing project to work on because I do consider myself a patriot, and that was a lot of fun. Industrially, working with you on the DC Convention Center was a great opportunity that Clark had afforded us. That was a big rain screen, vast amounts of interior stone. That was really a big thing. And then, as the years went on, we took on more and more complicated jobs. We've done countless levels of churches, probably in as many as 20 different states. Some of the most important things that stick in my mind, the Trinity Dome, also at the National Shrine, was our largest contract at that time. Other really interesting jobs, Whiting Turner has been great to us over the years. The Embassy of the UAE was really a spectacular building in DC. And then, of course, going down to Charlottesville and working on the Capitol Rotunda, which was designed by Thomas Jefferson. And
wow.
We replaced the 16 Corinthian capitals for them. And that was a really interesting process to work with their historians and curators and preservationists with limited historical records from 1823. So that was really an amazing job. And then currently, we have finished things like the Trump International Hotel, which was a big undertaking.
Did you get paid?
Yes, we did.
Perfect.
Yeah. I like to tell people we were first paid.
Good.
We got along fine with the Trumps. Everything worked out. And currently we're working on the reclad of the Air and Space Museum, which is a very large full wall system. So we own the AVB, the blast rated wall, the thermally broken mullions, and of course all the stone cladding. So that's a really interesting project that had a 1.5 year of design assist period and about a 4 to 5 year construction period. So we're about 50% complete on that. I'd like to take you there sometime. Actually, I think you'd get a kick out of it.
I would love to go. And I got to ask you about that because you've got a lot of big commercial jobs. You've got a lot of jobs that are just craftsmen.
Yeah.
How do you see manpower these days? Because it's not great in the building business.
Yeah, manpower has been really tricky. This is a very hard market to hire in as well. It's never been a factory town, so we don't always have children that are descendants of people that work with their hands. I call it a paper town. So we recruit a lot. We bring people in from different areas, including overseas. We're pretty
in Vermont.
No, we actually don't have too many from Vermont. No, we have quite a few New Englanders in here. Quite a few people from Italy, Portugal, Spain, those type of areas.
So, if I were a client and you were sitting here, we were having lunch, and I asked you, I'm going to ask you the following questions from a client. Brett, tell me the top 3, 4, or 5 things that when I'm looking at work, I should come to you with, like in priority. What would they be?
Just like bullet points?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I would say reliability.
Yep.
Consistency. And complete dedication.
So, like, they can trust you.
Oh, they can trust us.
That's the biggest word in marketing you can ever have, right?
It is. It really is.
So now I'll get more granular, and I'm going to ask you, what kind of jobs can you most add value to me?
I would say anything that involves a very high level of customer satisfaction, where we're not just trying to plug in a company and a process, but where you want our experience, whether it's an exterior wall design or whether it's the embellishment of a historically sensitive church or museum.
It's not like a marble floor.
Yeah, we certainly add a lot of value to those things, but let's face it, it's become a little bit commoditized. So our highest skill sets and our greatest value is on the most complicated pieces of work.
Well said. So what advice would you give to our listeners for somebody who wants to either, grow in business or become an owner in a business? What advice would you give them?
Well, the first advice would be it's all in, is that there's never a day off. Be prepared to live without. That means when payroll's got to be met and there's no money for you, you will go without if you're a very honest, ethical employer. You must find a product or service that has not been commoditized. You've got to find something that the market needs that has a fair return with minimal competition. Hopefully it doesn't take a tremendous amount of capitalization to start this, and you really need to do something you love to do. If you don't love what you're doing, it becomes pure work, and pure work is not a passion, and you won't succeed in the long run, in my estimation.
Did you listen to my podcast? Because you just kind of repeated.
No.
I agree 100% with what you just said. I ask all my guests this. I'm going to ask you, how would you describe success, A, in business and B, personally?
Okay, so if we start with the business component, I'm debt averse. I hate being beholden to a bank or a bonding company and all those things. So pure success is having your own capital to determine your own destiny. Along with taking care of and sharing with all your key partner employees that have helped make that success. Even if you're the owner or the entrepreneur, it doesn't mean you did all this yourself. It means you might have been at the helm and you take the brunt of the risk, but you've got to share in those success points. So being prudent with leveraging debt, never getting too deep in, always staying humble and respectful that the market can change in a second, and always taking care of your employees. That kind of defines my level of success on the business side.
Now, before you get to the personal side, you said something about your partner employees. I
That's
like
right.
that.
Dave,
Talk about that a little bit.
look, when I recruited employees to come to work for me, the core early employees were 10 or 12 years older than me, already established, had families, were worried about their retirements, but they saw something in me and believed in me. And so I was able to benefit from, as a company, from their prime skills in the best years of their lives to help propel this company with real expertise. So although they didn't share in the indemnification, they were every bit as important in terms of executing the visions that I laid out. So I do like to call them partner employees.
On the personal side, success.
Success. Well, if you decide to raise children, you got to do it right. To me, the best education you can afford for them, the amount of activities, and a lot of personal time and attention and nurture to a certain point. And then you have to turn them loose to start to experience the world, but hope that their ear is still open and they will listen to you about all the different forks in the road that we all come across. So for me, my greatest success will be 3 children and become 3 great, well-established, happy, functional adults.
Awesome. So I'll say this: congratulazione, hai superato le aspettate. Could you translate that?
That means congratulations, you arrived.
Awesome.
Thank
Hey
you,
man,
Dave.
I just want to thank you so much for joining us. You can find out more about Brett Rugo at rugostone.com. I would urge you to do so. And again, thank you for joining us. Stay safe and stay tuned. All the music for the episodes, including our theme song Elevate, was provided by DMV producer Trey Skills. If you like what you heard, follow Trey Skills on Instagram at Trey Skills, TreySkillz. That's TreySkillz. So follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Elevate Industry. Check out my YouTube channel at Commercial Construction, Elevate the Industry. Visit my website, adicorp.com, adicorp.com. Go to LinkedIn, search for David Procida, hit connect, and follow me. Please rate, review, and comment on this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week.